Hey everyone, it's your girl Paige Michel, Digital Marketing and Engagement Assistant with the Arts at the University of Southampton team. I have been assisting Louise and Jen with the Southampton Cultural Education Partnership and the Connecting Culture Project. I have been doing communications and content creation. I have been tasked with creating profiles on the Artist Facilitators on the Connecting Culture Project. And first up, we have the lovely Natalie Watson. So the first question for Natalie is, tell us a bit about yourself.
Cool. Thank you, Paige. So I am a contemporary dance artist, and I work in Southampton in Hampshire mainly. It's where I'm based, so the majority of my work is in that area. I, depending on what day it is, I'm either professionally dancing in various different projects, or I'm teaching and facilitating dance. And I guess my um, mantra for my practice, if you like, is making dance accessible to all. I think everyone should experience dance in some sort of way, whether they go and watch a performance or they participate in some sort of dance workshop. I think once someone has experienced it, you can't not be impacted by it, whether you like it or not. I think you always have an opinion of your experience of it, and I obviously love it. I love my job, so I think everyone should dance at some point during their life. I'm freelance, and I have been sort of self-employed for the past 5 years or so, and literally worked it from scratch. So I graduated and didn't know anyone or how to network or where to look for jobs. So just sort of fumbled my way through it, and yeah, here we are now.
Thank you, Natalie. So, what does creativity mean to you in your life? What drives you to be an artist?
um, Creativity is excitement. It's unpredictability, or it's unpredictable. It's research. It's discovering things about yourself and others. And what drives me as an artist, there's always a new creative challenge to take on. So in the world of art, regardless of your practice, you can never get bored because there's always something new to be looking at or developing or thinking about, and that's really exciting, but then frustrating at the same time because there's never like an end point to something.
So, what is your motivation for being part of the Connecting Culture project? Why are you so invested or happy to be on this project?
So when I first saw this project advertised, I was really happy that something artsy was happening in my hometown. As I said, when I first graduated, I didn't know anyone or anything about Southampton and culture, and I worried a little bit about how I would make a living as a dance artist in the area. Um, uh, so yeah, I was like thrilled that this was happening in my local area, and that I could get to know other artists as well outside of dance. That was something that was really, really interesting to me, and sort of connect and network with them, and to hopefully have some sort of impact on the cultural landscape of Southampton.
Thank you, thank you. So, let us know some of your favorite works, some of your works that you want to share with us, the different projects that you've been working on, if you've worked with young people and education before.
Oh gosh, that's such a big question, or questions. Young people in education. So I've always taught all through whenever I sort of graduated. So I've always taught. So young people in education have been a real key thread in my teaching practice. And as I said, I'm very passionate about everyone experiencing dance. So I think getting in sort of as young as possible is really, really important. So I've taught from ages 5 to 95, really.
Oh, wow.
And I've worked on various projects. Oh my God, you're putting me on the spot now. I've got to think what I've been doing over the last 5 years. Um, 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 So I teach a lot of or I make a lot of choreography, so I make a lot of work for youth companies, or for example, I'm working on a project with the Portsmouth Library at the minute as they look after the Arthur Conan Doyle collection. So looking at how we use the collection and the story of Sherlock Holmes to make a piece. It's going to be a dance film inspired by the stories of Sherlock Holmes. I'm working with some young carers from Portsmouth. So we're having digital workshops at the minute, digital creative times together, and then fingers crossed sort of in March we'll be able to do some filming outside with them. And again, that's something completely new for me. I've never made dance for film before. It's always been live performances. So I'm working with a filmmaker. That's really, really interesting. And I'm a real history geek. I absolutely love researching into what's gone on before. So anything historical, I'm sort of so into it. So that's one project. Another project that I'm dancing professionally in is I'm working with a choreographer called Katie Green. Again, it's a historical project that's looking at the timeline and timescale of the Mayflower 400 ship going over to America and sort of establishing what we know as America is today. That was meant to be the 400th anniversary last year. Obviously, everything went upside down. So hopefully we've got outdoor performances happening this year in different areas or up and down the country, actually, where the sort of ship was built. And people came onto the ship, it leaving Plymouth, because Plymouth was the last place it was. So yeah, lots of different things. Yeah, we'll leave it there because otherwise I'll start rambling.
No, that sounds very interesting. Like I actually studied history at Southampton, and we did learn about like the Mayflower and the Pilgrims and all that. So it's very interesting stuff.
Nice.
So what workshops what will the workshops that you do include for the children? So what can we be expecting from you, Natalie?
So my practice is contemporary dance, and they're going to really move. This is not just like, oh, we're going to do one nice shape and that's it. When I teach, the participants are fully involved physically as much as possible in the sessions, which may sound quite obvious, but I try and strive on like a full body experience rather than just odd moments of movement. So yeah, lots. I mean, I'm not coming in and teaching movement or teaching ways of moving. The participants are very much going to lead the creative tasks that I'm going to give them, and they're informing the research. So I'm purely there just to sort of facilitate and guide their creativity. I'm not necessarily there to dictate what's right and what's wrong, because it's their creativity and their ideas that I'm most interested in, and you guys are most interested in as well. So yeah, lots of movement, lots of creativity, lots of creative thinking, both physically and mentally.
Sounds good. So COVID-19 has put some of the in-person workshops on hold. How would you encourage the children and teachers to stay creative during lockdown? Do you have any tips?
Be creative for creative sake. So not everything has to have an outcome or an end goal, or it has to be right. Just play and mess around with whatever art form everyone's most interested in. Just be creative for the sake of being creative. It's a wonderful way to de-stress and just let everything go and have a bit of fun, and it's accessible regardless of age or ability.
How important do you think it is that children and young people use their creative voices and express themselves?
Hugely. Oh, I found a quote earlier that I really liked. Let me just find it. It sort of sums up. So it says, this is from Kelly Pollock, the true process of arts education is not necessarily to create more professional dancers or artists. It's to create more complete human beings who are critical thinkers, who have curious minds, who can lead productive lives. So to sort of unpick that, you know, it's hugely important to be creative because it unlocks, as it says in that quote, that critical thinking, that problem solving, that element of being able to think on the spot, and use your imagination. I think, you know, when we get older, we lose the sense of using our imagination because it's not necessarily required in the workplace as much. But I argue that it's needed more in the workplace, and the workplace would become a much more fun place to be. So yeah, I think it's hugely important, and I think it's hugely important that we continue to do that throughout our lives, and it doesn't necessarily stop when we are, you know, primary school or secondary school.
No, yeah, I agree. We should, you know, keep in touch with our inner child, you know, use that creative spirit. Yeah. What advice would you give to young people who would like to establish themselves in the art industry?
There's lots to really say about that, but there's no direct pathway. I think if you talk to any artist, they've all, you know, all their pathways and all their journeys to sort of where they are now are very, very different. So what works for me doesn't necessarily work for you in terms of how you got to where you are at the minute. So that's one thing. What else have I said? Just do it. I think we get so hesitant and we worry about what people will think of us, because, you know, as artists, you're essentially putting yourself out there to be judged and criticised, hopefully in a positive way, but there is that element of of opening up for criticism. So try and push that to one side. I know it's quite a scary thought to do, but just go and do it. And making mistakes is really, really important. It's how you learn, and it's how you know what you want to do and what you don't want to do as an artist. And I think that's really important, and that took me ages to figure out. It sort of never happens overnight. And networking, and I don't necessarily mean to gain something out of it, but just talking to other artists is really, really important. And whether that's in your own little sort of art bubble or whether you widen that out to other art forms, that's absolutely fine. But talking to people, getting to know them as a person, what their art form is, you know, if they're working in an area that you want to, how did they, you know, find out about whatever's going on, and then you'll have someone that you can go to and talk to and say, I've got this idea, what do you think? And then they'll go yes or no, and then you start to build up a bit of a relationship and a bit of rapport, you know, and then they'll recommend you go and talk to this person, or there's a funding pot that you can apply for. So I think networking is really, really key. I think that's it really. And being approachable actually is really fundamental. It's all very well being a beautiful artist in whatever art form, but if you don't have sort of, what am I trying to say? If you're not someone who is dedicated and wants to work hard, and wants to stay late in, you know, in the office as it were, but obviously not in the office, then actually that will get you further, because you're more employable. You've got to think about being, you know, your employability skills. Being on time is incredibly important, being organised. So yeah, that's a lot of things to think about when you're trying to establish yourselves, but yeah, hopefully you can unpick them a little bit like that.
Thank you for the advice. Is there anything else that you'd like to add about your role in the Connecting Culture project that we haven't addressed today?
No, I don't think so. I just think it's a really exciting project, and something that I'm really glad Southampton and the university has really invested in. I've really seen a cultural shift in Southampton in the last couple of years in terms of making accessible art to the public, and therefore employing artists to make this kind of artwork. So I just really hope that continues, and everyone sees the importance of it.
Thank you, Natalie. Thank you for your time. I've learned a lot. I'm sure we've all learned a lot today. And yeah, that's it for the interview.
Awesome, cool, lovely. Thank you, Paige. Well done.